Hi, I'm Jo Fothergill.
And hi everyone, I'm Tara Taylor-Jorgensen.
We are teachers from New Zealand. We live on the very beautiful Kapiti Coast, as you can see there. Tara teaches in Pukerua Bay School, which is this little bay that you see at the bottom, and I teach a little bit further around the coast at Raumati Beach School.
So it's an absolute honour to be here today. We saw Sagata Mitra's talk last year. I've actually been following Sagata Mitra for quite some time and haven't actually officially met him, so it's kind of weird to be doing this when he's just there. So hence the bouncing around, but we'll catch up later, hopefully. But no, it is a true honour, and what we want to get across today is how minimally invasive education worked extremely well for the hole-in-the-wall studies, which you probably all know. And it also works very, very well in other remote areas all over the world, but it works extremely well in normal day-to-day classrooms, and so we're going to show you a few examples of that.
This is a quote from Sagata Mitra about remoteness being global, and New Zealand's no exception. The darker the colour that you see there, the more remote geographically the place is. But we've discovered that there's also a remoteness that is socio-economic, and sometimes those remote places are in the middle of big cities.
So minimally invasive education has kind of changed the curriculum. Teachers haven't caught on to that yet, but here's a couple of my kids talking about that.
Some people think that we do reading, writing, and maths, but we do so much more than that.
So they are two very awesome children that I actually taught 4 years ago, so this is not new for them, but this covers a lot of themes that have been going through the conference today, which is really reassuring. And so these guys are actually from a remote area in New Zealand called South Auckland. And if we move on, yep. And so because, as you can see, the Pacific Island children, the role at the school was probably about 90% Pasifika and the rest Māori, which is New Zealand's. We're a bicultural nation, and Māori are very important. And so it was very important for me to get the Pacifica kids to speak English, and because English was their second language. And I thought, well, if Sagata Mitra can do it with a hole in the wall, perhaps I don't need to keep doing the phonics flashcards at them daily and torturing them with that. Why don't I try a bit of hole in the wall stuff? And so I worked on the principle of ambiguity. So you might have heard him say to kids, I don't know how to do it, and anyway I have to go, and then he comes back 6 months later and they're doing quantum physics and stuff. So I said, well, instead of doing our morning news show and Good Morning Class and it going nowhere, why don't we have an authentic audience? And I gave them a camera and said, you're going to put on a news show. And they said, how do you do that? And I said, I don't know. But it's not actually that simple, because a lot of people think that minimally invasive education means that the teacher sits back, has a coffee, and the kids learn. What my role is now is to be a connector. So while they were figuring out how to put a news show on, and they used YouTube as a medium, I connected them with an Australian school who were doing the same thing. And that was a twist on the granny cloud, because instead of grannies being the people giving feedback to the kids, it was actually other students in Australia, which with Trans-Tasman rivalry was very, very, very effective. And you might think it's bizarre that we got New Zealand kids and Australian kids to talk about English pronunciation, given that, you know, I hope you can understand the accent anyway.
One of the other things that we've looked at doing is just using it in our everyday classrooms, and we are both now teaching in high decile areas or high socio-economic areas, and we came up with this is one of our resources that we've come up with, and we've called it Real Messy Maths, and we've been influenced by these three gentlemen along with Sagata Mitra. Ewan McIntosh, who talks about problem posing, Dan Meyer, who talks about ambiguity, and Conrad Wolfram, who talks about maths versus calculation. And we've used that ambiguity in maths because this is a problem that you might find in a textbook, and you probably all have seen a problem like this. It gives all the information. So the kids only have to be able to figure out that the sum of the sides is the 4 centimetres plus the 7 centimetres, etc. We think the problem should be posed like this. And this has been the type of maths that we've been trying with our kids. We give them that, and then they've got to figure out the rest. They can come and ask us questions, but we don't tell them how to do it. We give them the tools, and off they go and do it. This is an example of our real messy maths, which was about real life problems. And we actually crowdsourced this through our Twitter followers. We put it out, we created a Google Doc presentation, we put it out there. We said, hey, we've started this, we want your ideas, we want your ambiguous questions, your real life questions to solve. And as you can see, we don't tell them what they need to do. It's up to them to figure out that they've got to work out what are those ingredients in a Big Mac. Where do you get them from? They've got to figure all that out themselves. Very popular too. And so we did this crowdsourcing through Twitter, and even while we've been here in the UK, people have been adding to this document. So it's a real current one that we're using at the moment. Some other crowdsourcing that we do is 100-word challenge, which is a writing challenge for kids. Kids write a 100-word story based on a prompt that someone's given them. It's posted to a website. They get responses from people all around the world. They comment on their blogs. We use KidBlog a lot in our classrooms.
We believe that this is increasingly important because we need to break down this single world view that kids experience in classrooms. So what I think is a good piece of writing might be completely different from what Jo thinks is a complete great piece of writing. And it's really important that kids get those multiple perspectives. And we've also discovered that digital stuff is not necessarily culturally neutral. So it's a good way to get other cultural views into the learning. And again, we pick up on the granny cloud with that, and we can Skype in experts or grandmothers or even someone who's just down the road. But what we've also discovered that, as well as us being connectors, the kids actually have to start learning social networking. And we're working with 8, 9 and 10. I work with 11 and 12-year-olds. So they're quite young kids. The story's not necessarily interesting. What's interesting is that this child has got 29 comments on the story. So gone are the days of the exercise books where I go, well done, full stops, capital letters, smiley face, stamp, put it in your desk and it's gone. This child has got 29 different pieces of feedback, and that's extremely important because it's authentic and it's real.
The challenge for us, however, is how do you marry the whole new pedagogies, this way of learning, collaboration and all that, with the standardised testing that we in New Zealand certainly have to undergo, and I know in the UK you have to undergo, because it is a challenge. If we are assessing a child's ability to recall a fact, and they're sitting in isolation, but actually we've been teaching them in a collaborative environment, and they've been working together to come up with their answers.
That picture that you saw that we're now put words over is a SOL, a self-organised learning environment, and they require children to work collaboratively. We need them to be critical, like the guy talked about this morning. We need them to know if the YouTube video is real or not, and they need to have conversations with each other about them and not be learning and being assessed in isolation. So in a previous life I was actually a management graduate, but that didn't go so well for me. But I did learn that what gets measured gets done. So we need to work out how we can measure the good stuff rather than basic facts and instant recall of times tables.
We've got a 10-week sabbatical from our jobs, and we are researching assessment. And one of our goals is to see how we can set up or develop or begin to develop a minimally invasive assessment system where we can assess things like, a student's ability to work collaboratively and to contribute within that SOL environment.
To produce diverse and original ideas.
And to critically evaluate and debate information that they find when working in that SOL. So that's where we're at. And we just want to give a final shout out. This is part of our crowd. This is our finance crowd. And we crowdsourced our stay here and our trip from London up to Newcastle. We actually crowdsourced it through a New Zealand startup called Pledge Me. And these are the people who pledged money and enabled us to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you.